It's the RutgersKev Show.
Kevin O'Keefe gets the win at Charlotte.
Kevin O'Keefe is going to take his first win and only his third start in the series. Beautiful job for Kevin O'Keefe.
Gonna troll me forever.
Oh my gosh, Sean. Yeah, Sean, take a look at his on his kid there. Very appropriate today. Oh boy.
I'm Matt Malone. I stream Iracing, but when I'm not racing, I'm listening to the RutgersKev Show with your host, RutgersKev.
How does he have 38 viewers?
Kev interview where RutgersKev does an interview. It's time for the RutgersKev interview where RutgersKev does an interview. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the RutgersKev Show. I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska. So I know the intro said broadcasting live from beautiful Monmouth County, but not anymore. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska during the move. I need to tell my guests what's going on. Hey, I forgot. I'm on Push to Talk for Discord, so I'm actually doing the intro now. So that's why it's so quiet. So here's the deal. I moved to Omaha, Nebraska. I got a great job. Everything is perfect. I got a great house, and I got basically a room in the house, which is basically my new streaming studio. So I'm going to have 2 computers in here. I got my board games in here. I got 3 screens, and I have my Obuttos separated. 1 screen on the Obutto as well. And I bought another computer, and we're going to make that like my dedicated streaming rig. So really now the decision is which computer do I use for the streaming rig and which computer do I use for general gaming. I really haven't decided yet because I generally bought the same specs, but because it's 3 years later, it's like $1,000 cheaper than what I spent on the other one. I have guests today, Kevin Ellis Jr., particularly, but we just did the race of the decade. Which was a charity event that the My Opinion Therefore Fact podcast put on. So also involved in that race was Scott Newton of Apex TV, and also Alain Day is a new member of iRacing. He's only been around for 6 months. So let's bring them in. All right, we're here with our guest. Let's say hi to Kevin Ellis Jr. first. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, how's it going?
So anyone that doesn't follow the scene, Kevin Ellis Jr. is a member of the Apex racing team, and he's been a member of the service for many, many years right now. And in 2018, he finished 6th in the Iracing World Championship Grand Prix Series. So a very accomplished racer. So I'm very happy to have somebody of his skill level on the team, and generally, one of the personalities of iRacing. So we're in for a treat. Also with us is Scotty Newton, also of Team Apex UK. Say hi.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hope you're all doing well.
Now, are you one of the pro drivers? I'm not really sure what your background is.
Sadly, I'm not a pro WC driver. Just the Aussie times, it makes it very, very difficult to be able to try and qualify for the Pro Series. But also with the current Pro car, as of the end of 2018, I struggled with the MP430 and decided to continue in more Formula until something else cropped up. So hopefully with the announcements that are coming soon, hopefully I'll be able to get back into the Pro Series and try and qualify for the WCS.
Okay, and Alain Day is here too. He was one of the drivers that just participated in the race for the decade, and it's good to get his perspective on things because he's a new member of iRacing. He's been a member for about 6 months. Say hi. You didn't come through there.
Oh, hello everyone.
Oh, there we go. So let's just start with you, Alain. So what we did was the race of the decade. I've kind of explained it 3 times already, but it was a race where the My Opinion Therefore Fact podcast invited what they were calling pros. So it's generally World Championship drivers and other personalities like Matt Malone and myself, and Dim Cross Jr. also raced. So we were the pros, and then the quote unquote regular slums of iRacing can donate money, and all the money went to the Make-A-Wish Foundation UK, and then they got the opportunity to race with a pro driver. It was supposed to be random. It turned out to not exactly be random, but I think everybody was happy with the way it turned out. And the idea was, we can now rub shoulders with people that we normally wouldn't be able to. So let's just get your perspective on the race first, Alan. What you think of the event? I think you were paired with Nimcross Jr.
Yeah. So from our perspective, obviously, like I was one of the many donators. We got to race with a celebrity racing driver. So, like, say with Kevin himself. Like
Who were you paired with?
I was actually paired off with Alex. I was in the end. So, excuse me. So when we all got notified of our driver, we were all placed into like our own Discord chat. Like the organisation of the race itself was all very, very good.
And what did you feel about, as a new driver? Did you get like the appeal of driving with the quote unquote pros?
Well, yeah, like it's not just on the perspective of just driving with another professional racing driver. It's also driving against other ones as well. So, like we had, like as you just said earlier on, like you had Matt Malone, you've also had Dakota, you've had Jimmy Broadbent on there as well. You've had multiple of great racing drivers who are very well known on the iRacing front, as well as, and then you have people like myself and other drivers that have never had the chance to be able to drive up against these celebrity drivers. So to be able to actually drive alongside these big name drivers is like by the name of the race of the decade, it definitely does live up to how the name is actually suggested. And to be able to actually also not just any kind of race, also race for charity as well. It's also a big thing as well that it actually be able to help people that do generally require that help to be able to actually fund for a great cause.
And then Kevin, as a pro, how did you feel about the event? Did you have some nervousness about who you were going to be paired with?
Yeah, I think it's kind of natural. Obviously, all eyes were on us to kind of set the pace, I think. And as for me, I'm not really a GT3 driver, so I wasn't hoping for much anyway. But I think the whole event in general, as Alan said, it's a win-win for everyone. For us, it's a bit of fun. We get to race against guys. I mean, I was racing against Mitchell and Jamie and Kazuki, guys who I'm used to racing in the World Championship where everything's on the line. And today it was just a simple bit of fun. Just go out on track, put on a show, and have some fun. So, for people like us, it's good just to kind of have a race and enjoy it. And obviously for the AM drivers, it's good for them to get to rub shoulders with us and kind of learn, what they're doing wrong and how we practice and stuff. They can ask us questions throughout the race on, what do you do in certain situations and stuff like that. And then of course you're raising money for a charity, which is that's the main goal of that whole race. So I think the whole event in general was a win-win for everyone. It was well put together. The race was clean. It was a good fun, and it was obviously an endurance race as well. So we all got to kind of swap. It wasn't just they were in their own car way behind. They were all matched in with us, so they got to race on the same lap as the pro drivers. So no, a great event all round, and I think we definitely need more of these going forward.
All right, and Scotty, as somebody that was in the middle, you're not a pro and you're not a new member. How did you feel about it?
Oh yeah, just great event that was put on by the MOATF guys. It's probably one of the best one-off races that I've ever been a part of. And yeah, to be honest, to be raising money for charity like Make-A-Wish Foundation, I know that they do a lot of great things around the world for children that are a little bit disadvantaged. So yeah, anything to help out those guys is always a positive thing. And yeah, it was a great event all around to be a part of.
And a shout out to all the people that donated, mostly from Jimmer's stream. So shout out to them. So the total raised is at the time of the recording about 5,300. I guess that's pounds, and 3,100 of that came from Jimmy's stream. So awesome. So I mean, so there's not really been a lot of charity events in iRacing, not that I can think of. Can anyone think of anything where there was a significant amount of money raised? And I'm not talking about somebody streams the Daytona 500 the Daytona 24 hours by himself and then donates all the money that he gets. Was there anything like big like this that you guys can think of?
Not personally, no.
Like, I can't think of anything that has been in the past. But there is something that's due to be coming up next weekend. Like, I was originally going to be doing that race in particular, but unfortunately, because of work commitments, obviously, I've not been able to do so. But like, from my perspective, like, I'd say to anybody, like, if you're able to participate in any kind of like charity event, like, by all means try and do so, because like, even if it is like, say for example, like, I've only been doing iRacing for about 6 months, and I'm driving alongside with other drivers that have been playing doing esports and iRacing for a number of years. It's just great to be able to actually race alongside them. It is, and being able to do it for a great cause like that. And like, obviously with this next charity event that's going on, like, I'm pretty sure like that will be just as good as what MOATF has been able to put on.
I got to say, I don't know another charity event, so could you fill me in?
So with this one, it's a 6-hour race. That's Brands Hatch. I'm forgetting the name of the team that has actually put it on. I think
Where in the forums would it be?
I don't think it's on these forms. I know I had that before, but I can relay them details back on, so that way, if people do want to join, like, I think it's all the spots have been taken on already, but obviously you can still donate as well. Like, I think as another thing, it's a great thing. Like, if other people are able to join something like that, it's definitely a great thing to be able to do in general as well.
All right, now this question's more for Kevin. I don't know when you were asked, Kevin, but I think I was asked back in the early summer to join this thing, and it really, part of the reason why 5,300 pounds was earned was because Jimmy raced. So you really need that name value, I think. So there's a lot of work that goes into this. You can't just plan it within 2 weeks' notice. When were you asked to join, Kevin?
Yeah, roughly the same time as you, I think. Around about the early summer, if memory serves, June or July.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, what would have happened if, there wasn't Jimmer and Matt in the race.
I'm not sure. I mean, I've got a few opinions on the way that the World Championships are ran, and I think that there's a big issue, or that there's been a topic discussed recently of why are individual streamers like Jimmy and Matt, why are they getting more views than the esports broadcast? And personally, I believe that it's because of the personalities. You get to learn the person that you're watching, whereas on the esports broadcasts, we're not perceived as people as such. There's a few cases where, yeah, you've got the camera of Stalin Chepelevsky during the iRacing World Rallycross Championship with the VR and stuff on that. That was really good, but I think they need more. And I don't feel as if that the drivers are really being shown as people, so people can't latch onto a driver and kind of support them, if you get what I mean. They don't really learn the person's personality and who they're watching. So having people like Jimmy and Matt and yourself is crucial to get the eyes on the event, because someone said somewhere Jimmy had like 1.7k viewers or something, which is immense. Without that, half the donations wouldn't have been there. So we definitely need people like him, but I think that more needs to be done for the professional drivers to really be noticed as people.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on that in a second. Let me just wrap up here with Alan. can you think of any other charity events other than a race that you think that people could do? Because it's just kind of like we almost see like all the time like forum posts like, hey, I'm down on my luck, add to this GoFundMe, and those kind of get laughed at in the forums. I'm not sure if you're really a member of the iRacing forums or if you're active there, but I can't really think of anything else other than a big race that's broadcasted and planned. I'll throw it out to all three of you, but Alan, as somebody new and fresh, do you have any ideas?
I think it's like on the base of a charity event, it's actually quite a broad method of ways that you can actually do. So, like if you wanted to come away from the esports perspective, like say for example, if it was general gaming and sort of thing, you could do something like maybe speed running. Say for example, I see multiple types of people doing that, or it could be back home. I do like role playing with like some friends of mine. I do away from my computer, and we do our own like YouTube channel, that sort of thing, away from that. And by by trying to create a cause to be able to actually be able to explain to people why some people may need that help by a charity event. It is it's a matter of trying to get people on board. It is as well in that perspective. Like some people may not necessarily be excited by a certain type of event, but it is quite a big open field of what can be done. It doesn't just has to be esports, but somebody obviously wants to be able to create a charity event. So, for example, it doesn't even have to be something that they're necessarily good at. It can be just something that they like, just have to want to have a bit of fun with. Say, for example, and if it's promoted well enough, then obviously it can. A great deal of money can be donated to a great cause, whether it might be Make-A-Wish or if it might be something else.
All right, I'm going to have an in-depth conversation here with Kevin, but so I'm going to send you off. But I am curious when new members join. So how did you find out about iRacing? How long did it take you to sign up when you found out about it? And what were some of the reasons why you signed up?
Well, I used to play Gran Turismo Sport quite a bit on the PlayStation 4, and I used to play on the like the Manufacturers Cup and the Nations Cup quite a bit. And I was finding quite a lot that some amount of drivers wouldn't really race. They would more prefer to just punt you off the track quite a bit. And I was like, I've just had about enough of this sort of thing. This is going back to around about the start of the summer. This was. And when I started watching on YouTube, I actually first of all watched Matt Malone and Jimmy Broadbent actually on their own YouTube channels on their pre-recorded videos of iRacing. And like back then, I didn't have that much money coming in, and I thought to myself, if I can try and build up enough money, then I can start doing this. And like I was on an extremely tight budget at the time, but now my budget is a little bit more flexible. So when I joined iRacing back at the start of the summer, at first the game seemed very, very daunting because I didn't know the first thing I wanted to do. Like I tried out the MX-5s and like. It's very, very different to Gran Turismo Sport, where with Gran Turismo Sport, you can obviously set to what age you want it to be on. iRacing doesn't necessarily have all of that, but it allows you to be able to feel like as if you are a proper racing driver. It does. So with me, it was like it's a matter of learning how to drive a car properly. It was. And then once I got into grips with that and learned about the car, learned about the tracks, and then I was going faster and faster and faster. Like I'm still feeling like I'm going faster even now. I do. And I know that that the rate I'm going at the moment, I am going to go even faster to be able to actually learn everything that I'm possibly able to do. And like even the professional drivers, there is no such thing as I've learned everything. You're still learning whether it is, say, for example, from a new driver that you've learned from that you didn't discover before, or somebody who is quite high up the top. And and then coming into something like this, like this is my first charity race that I've ever been a part of. So it's like I knew that there will be a lot of great drivers to be able to race amongst, but the whole experience has definitely been quite a high point, and I know that like these sort of things can only get better. They can, and like that sort of thing, really. So.
Okay, great. You basically covered everything I've talked about in the podcast. It's the content creators that are bringing these people in, and that's why it's really falling on us. And I put myself in that pool, but I'm kind of out of it. That was me in 2013. So it's mostly Matt and Jimmer who's really bringing people in, and we're their marketing team. It's a real shame. I've talked about that before in the past, and I think we're going to talk about that exactly with Kevin next. So, but I put the call out after the race. Anyone who wanted to be on the show, and you spoke up, so thanks, and you've added some great insight. So, anybody else who wants to be on the show, it doesn't matter if you've been a member for 6 months or 9 years. Send me a message. I'll gladly have you on the show. I want to talk with anybody about iRacing, and I want to hear from all different perspectives, whether you're at the top of the pile like Mr. Ellis Jr., whether you're a member for 6 months and you're just a D license and you're just working your way up the ladder. Happy to hear from you, man. Happy to hear from you, and I'm happy to have you on the show. Scotty, your mic was muted. I thought you had stepped away, so I'll give you some final words if you want to say anything.
Oh no, it's just I happened to have a tablet going off in the background, so I just didn't want to interfere with what was going on in the broadcast, but in the podcast. So, but yeah, absolutely, yeah, just to be a part of this charity event, as Alain and have said it. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be a part of, and it's going to be benefiting for all parties as well, going forward for esports and iRacing in general. So yeah, just happy to be a part of it, and hopefully that'll continue to grow in the future.
All right, perfect. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no, not a problem.
All right, Kevin, let's get down to the nitty gritty. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Okay, so I bet you cringed. Before we started, I was like, I know exactly who you are, but I don't know how to introduce you. That's exactly the problem. I mean, I'm a guy who actually watches the races, a lot of times live if I can, but since you're a quote unquote mid packer, even though you finished 8th, I mean, it's not exactly your 14th, you don't get that recognition or your face or name on the broadcast like you would if you were running in the top 3, which is really something I've talked about in the past and something that Randy had talked about in prior episodes. It's like, and I want your feedback on it, right? But this is the impression I'm getting from a viewer and somebody who cares about this stuff. Okay, you are a member of a team, and you're a very good driver. If you finish 8th in the World Championship, then by default you're the best. You're the 8th best road racer in the world. Okay, that's
6, but
6. Okay, better. So I mean, so that's how you would market yourself. Okay, whether that's true or not, it doesn't matter. But hey, I finished 6th in the World Championship. Makes me 6th best in the world, right? So you go to a sponsor, and then you're like, look, I'm really, really good at this video game, and it's broadcasted, and I'm in the World Championship. It's sponsored by so and so, blah blah blah. And I want you to sponsor me. So the first question back would be, okay, great. You're really good at this video game. How many impressions are you going to get me? And your answer to that would be like, well, I don't know. It depends on whether RaceSpot wants to cover me or not. I mean, am I right on that?
100%. Yeah. For us, not just as a person, but as a team, it's hard to gain these bigger sponsors. Like, I mean, you can go to Monster Energy, Red Bull, Nvidia, Intel, stuff like that. Most of them will say typically your reach wants to be anywhere upwards of 10,000 reach across us, and because we're not broadcasted that much and we're not perceived as people, as you were saying, there's no eyes on us, so we don't get any kind of follows and likes and retweets and all the rest of it to get to that number that we're requiring. So it really limits us as a team in terms of sponsors and opportunities, because we're not getting shown as much as you and I both feel that we should.
All right. So the real question is, as a member of a team, whose responsibility do you think that falls on? Is it RaceSpot's responsibility to cover more people, or is it iRacing? They have a dedicated video guy. So is it his job to make like driver profiles for everyone? What would you like to see done?
I've requested that exact thing. Everyone to have a driver profile done. A 2-minute video would be suffice in my opinion. Just ask the person, sort of in like a one-to-one like this, just learn more about the person so that people know who they're. And yeah, there's guys who can do their own POV streams, and that gains stuff for them personally. Maybe their team gets some more views from that as well. But I think the responsibility falls mostly on iRacing side, because they're the ones that are promoting the World Championship. They're the ones that are paying us the prize money at the end of the year. They're the ones that are hosting the whole event. RaceSpot are just broadcasting. Now I think RaceSpot can do a better job. Personally, I've been vocal about that to RaceSpot members. I've said, I think you guys can do much better than what you're doing. I don't think it's quite there. I think it's lacking a fair bit from where it could and should be. But there's more responsibility on iRacing, in my opinion, to do the promotion stuff. They're the ones with more followers. They're the ones with the most eyes on them. They're the ones hosting the championships and paying the prize money. So I think more should be done both ways, but definitely it's more towards iRacing. They need to do more, in my opinion.
And it's kind of like you watch the recap video sometimes, and they'll show the start. Like they have like the highlight video at the end. I'm not sure if my viewers have seen this, but what they do is they basically have a little highlight package of the race, and so it's like 2.5 minutes long, sometimes even up to 4 minutes long. But what they'll do is they'll show the start, maybe the first 2 laps. They'll show a crash happens around lap 20, and then they'll cut to like the last lap, and it really just cuts out the whole story. Especially like Kevin could be running in 11th and have a like wheel to wheel battle, a great race, and it won't even show up in the highlight video or anywhere. And sometimes it's not even in the broadcast because RaceSpot, and I don't think they're wrong with this theory, but this is their theory that if it doesn't affect, the overall outcome, like if it doesn't affect the podium or the overall point standings or anything like that, they're not going to show a battle for 11th or 15th. So what I've noticed is somebody that I watch the races, and you don't really get the full picture, especially in the NASCAR side. There's a lot of times I will like see a driver leading for a lot of the race, and then he'll get a speeding penalty on pit road or something that totally changes the whole outcome of the race. And then he's in the back on a restart, and he overdrives it, and a wreck happens, stuff like that. That really like is part of the story of the race. And if you just watch the highlight video, you totally miss all that. Have you been seeing that yourself, Kevin? Have you been kind of frustrated with the way it's been presented, where if you're not Gregor or you're not Martin, you're kind of forgotten about? Oh, and I guess Mitchell as well.
Yeah, it's always been talked about the big three. You get Mitchell, Gregor, and as an example for me, I was quite frustrated after the Watkins Glen race. I qualified 22nd and fought back to 7th, and I think I was on the broadcast maybe 3 or 4 times total. And you can guarantee that if that, it would never be Martin, but if it was Martin or Mitchell or Gregor, there would be a lot more screen time of them fighting through the field than if it was us. I feel like the top 3 is really focused on, which is fair. That's the battle for the win. That's that's what everyone's aiming for. But when there's nothing happening for the win, why are we still watching? When there's action for even as high as 7th place, they'll just ignore it. And I don't really believe that they're not seeing it, because there's 3 of them, all with live timing, all looking throughout the field. There should be someone looking at like the top 8, then 9th to 16th, and then 17th back. You can split it that. The 3 of them looking at different parts of the grid, and it just doesn't seem to happen. It's very much focused on the top 3, which I'm not disagreeing with entirely, because they're the 3 best in the series. But for us, like 5th, there was really no coverage. Like no one really knows about Pete or myself or Josh Rogers. We're 5th, 6th, and 7th in the championship. You didn't really see much of us this year. Pete had a couple races he was battling for the win. He got a lot of screen time there, fair dues. But there's a few times I've had a couple really good drives through and I'll be thinking during the race, I'm like, yeah, this must be on the broadcast, and that was a good move. I've made up 10 spots in the first stint, and I go back and I've not even been mentioned once. It's like, what are they looking at? And you go and you look, and they're just looking at nothing. So, I think that, yeah, it's very much focused on the top three, and I get why, but I think the screen time could be split a bit better. You should be looking at the best battles on the track, not just the best position.
So, how big is the field in the World Championship? How many cars on the grid?
There can be 40. There's 40 guys licensed, but it's pretty rare you'll see all 40 there. So I'd say maybe around about 30 to 20.
And why? Because they don't show up?
Yeah, on the roadside, there's really no incentive. I mean, this could start a whole nother rant here, but there's no prize money in the iRacing World Championships at the moment. They're talking about more prize pools. At the time of recording this, 24th of November, we're 2 weeks away from an announcement roughly from iRacing on what's happening next year. There's new car, increased prize pools, maybe a title sponsor for the series, which is more than overdue. So, there could be more money there, but at the moment, there's no incentive to run. A lot of the red line guys were pulled away by the F1 Esports. More opportunities there. Drive for an actual F1 team, a $250,000 prize pool, I think there was. So, and you don't need to practice as much. It's just for F1 Esports. There's less racing than in the iRacing World Championship, and you're getting more money. So, who wouldn't go there? That's where the core thing is. I think with the NASCAR peak anti-free series, there'll be better participation there because there's nowhere else to really go for the best NASCAR. All the best oval guys are on iRacing. They're not going to go to NASCAR Heat 2 or whatever game is out at the moment because it's peak is the best, is the top, whereas on the roadside there's a lot of competition just now. McLaren Shadow, F1 Esports, the Vegas E-Race was one of them back in the day as well, and there's the iRacing World Championship. So iRacing have a lot of competition on the roads that is pulling these best members away. G2 are completely gone, Redline are completely gone apart from Gregor. Patrick Holtzman is gone. There's so many massive names that were top. I mean, all of them should be top 5 drivers. They should all be battling for. I shouldn't be finishing top 5 in the World Champion, but because they're not there, it's promoted me up positions because they've been dragged away, and iRacing aren't doing enough to bring them back. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah, I didn't know about G2 leaving. The whole team left?
Yep, they haven't done a race in ages. Freddie did the first 2 or 3. Sebi did the same. And Isaac's no longer on G2, but at the time he did maybe 5 races or so, and then they left. So yeah, the last half of the season, G2 were nowhere to be same for Redline.
Is Freddie still on the service?
Yeah, I believe Freddie's coming back for next year. He'll be doing the GTE World Championship next year, and whether he goes for the Grand Prix one is another thing. I think he's kind of waiting for the car announcement, as are a lot of. So the Open Wheel World Championship is up in the air right now. There's a lot that Tyler's talking about, really positive things, but we can't get anything out of him. We don't even know what car it's going to be. So yeah, they're all kind of waiting for that. But I believe Freddie will be doing the GTE World Championship next year.
So for those of you that listen to maybe a little bit more casual, the reason why G2 is important is because they're one of the only teams that have like a title sponsor. They're sponsored by people and companies that you would know, that you would have heard of. They don't sponsor me, so I'm not going to say their names. But it was cool when it started, when it was announced, because it's like, look, we're actually getting some recognition. So if what you're saying is true, that's scary to me, because that means that whoever was sponsoring them was looking at the return on their investment and was going, well, what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of it had to do with the G2 organizers and the drivers deciding on their own accord, but I mean, from a business standpoint for G2, it was a waste. It's a waste of time. There's nothing there. I mean, I'd say Coanda would have beaten G2 this year if G2 did the full F1 season. Coanda had the best setup, had the best drivers, had the best strategy. They were the deserving team to win. I think G2 would have been battling with us at the midpoint of the season. I think we might have had an upper foot on them, but I think near the end of the year, it would have been G2, us, and Burst all kind of battling for that number 2 team. And even if you come fourth in the championship, it's $1,000 cash, which sounds good, but when you break it all down to 14 races and we're practicing, for us at Apex, between 10 and 15 hours per race, at the end of the year, you do 10 to 15 hours per race 14 times and you get $1,000 at the end for coming fourth. It doesn't really fill your motivation.
Right. And it'll be interesting to see what AC does with their new GT title in terms of an esport.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Of course, they've got the blank pan license now as well. So,
but to compare it to, I'm sorry to talk over you, but to compare it to F1, I don't really think it's fair. I mean, I'm sure you saw that World Championship, the final.
The F1 Esports?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the semis. I never watched the final. I think I was busy when the finals were on, but I didn't have any intention of watching. It was one of those events I'd watch for a laugh more than anything. No disrespect to the people in it, but there's a few guys in there who I think really were a laughing stock. And I think the whole event was a bit of a joke, to be honest. That's why I didn't go for it.
The production values is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And GT Sport, same thing.
Yeah, it's all these other games. iRacing have the best product, but their marketing and their execution just isn't there, in my opinion, when it comes to, I mean, I'm not trying to bash on iRacing here. It sounds really negative for me, but I'm just looking at the other esports that are going on around us, and iRacing is constantly falling behind. It's just prize pools are at the bottom. Drivers are leaving the World Championship Grand Prix series because of these other competitions. So the competition's now dropping, motivation's dropping. There's still no series sponsor as of the prize pools haven't changed in the last 8 or 9 years that the series has been. Nothing has changed. The format's still the same. It's been the same thing for 8 years and it's not working. I'm hoping this change that Tyler's really bigging up work, but I'm not going to hold my breath as.
Well, and then I'm not bashing iRacing either here on this one. You've got a certain number of marketing dollars, and obviously, the FIA's got very deep pockets compared to iRacing, and obviously Sony and GT have very deep pockets. It's one of the best-selling games in the world. So it's a completely different beast, really. But it's not going to be enough if they just make a driver profile video and tweet it out once or twice, because they need to get eyes on it, right? So what do you think would be like the lightning bolt where we go from the level we're at now to the level where you want to be? Like what would need to happen? Would we need to have another one of these Alonso types starting his own team? If you recall, in week 1, Alonso tweeted out the link to the race, and the viewership shot up like tenfold. Is that something that's needed? Like, what else can you think of that would be what needs to be done to get the launching pad?
Having teams that are run by drivers like Alonso is definitely a massive help. But getting people to view a race once is one thing. Holding on to the viewers. And I think that is where RaceSpot come into. They got to step it up to hold on to the viewers, because I talk to a lot of guys who are just spectators of the series, and they say that they watch the broadcast and halfway through they just turn it off. They just can't stand it anymore. They can tell that what they're talking about is inaccurate. On RaceSpot, you're not allowed to mention netcode. I mean, if you ever watch a broadcast, if you mention netcode, it's instantly shut down. I remember one time I was netcoded off the track in a IGPS strength of field race, and the commentator at the time, I'm not going to say who, but the commentator at the time said that a tailwind blew me off the track going into Maggots Beckett's in an F1. I just lost it at 180 mile an hour because of a tailwind rather than admit that it was net. So, RaceSpot themselves have to up the game to hold the viewers, but we do need something like Alonso to get the viewers in now. What that could be, I don't know. iRacing could, come across something. They come up with an idea that no one else has thought of, and it just works. It's unlikely, but it could happen. I think their marketing just needs to be, 10 times better than it is now. The pro drivers should be getting, features and stuff like that. They should be being promoted. I see them promoting these other competitions on iRacing that aren't esports, like the iRacing Esports Network. If you look on there, there's a lot of series that aren't strictly esports. They're not the same as the World Championships. And again, it's no disrespect to those series, but when I think of esports, I think of the World Championships. You get your Peak, your VRS GT, the World Championship Grand Prix series, and the 3 dirt ones. That to me is esports. Maybe V8 Scops, that's ran like a World Championship. That's great to watch, but I'm not 100% sure what they could do to really up it. It has to be involved though with something in real life. Something has to happen, be it NASCAR, maybe get a real life commentator to commentate on the races so that people can, sort of flick back and forward, and it's not a massive change. You already know the commentator, you already know their style, and obviously that commentator has to know about sim racing, but I think that could be something. There's plenty of options, it's just what one works.
Yeah, well, obviously, the business model just isn't there. I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit out of school here, but I know of a company that wanted to invest in iRacing. They have a new product that's relevant to sim racing, and they wanted to go and invest in iRacing. So what they were going to do is they were going to just run a series, and it was going to be broadcasted. It was going to be multiple days per week, and it was going to be front and center with a big advertising budget. And they eventually, they crunched the numbers, and they're just like, this just doesn't make sense, and they just abandoned the whole project. And we're not even. There was an esport aspect to it because the series was going to have points, and there was going to be a champion, there was going to be a prize pool, but all this was designed just to be in a advertising. But it just doesn't work. It just doesn't make sense. And if you're new to the podcast, go back and listen to my Major Series episode. It's a great run series, and it costs the guy $10,000 to run the series, and he doesn't get nearly that back. In fact, he had to, pretty much beg people to go buy a T-shirt so he could recoup some of his cost. And this year they've changed the rules. They upped the price. If you want to qualify a second time, you have to pay $3. So it's kind of turned into pay to win. I understand where he's at, because he can't just be throwing away money to have fun in a racing league, and not that he should be making money either, but the fact that a regular series like that with 14 races, of course he did kind of overstep because there's 4 different time splits. So let's just call it 50 races. 50 races, $10,000. That's $200 a race, right? Am I right on that math? Something like that.
So wouldn't ask me. I'm rubbish at math.
Right, but I am too. That's why I'm a lawyer. That's why, and honestly, that's why I went to Rutgers. One of the reasons why I went to Rutgers was they had a very, very weak math requirement, and you weren't required to take a foreign language. Oh, it's great.
So it fits perfectly then.
Right.
I'm the same. Maths and languages was not my strong.
Right. When you have trouble with long vowel sounds and you try to learn Spanish, it doesn't really work. Also, I suck at spelling. I'm really bad at spelling like the English language. So, imagine trying to spell Spanish. Yeah, not good.
No hope then.
Right, exactly. So, but the point is I'm making, like, okay, well, if this guy could have generated $200 per race through ads on his website, he was selling title sponsorships for the race. So like the Indy 500, like you could title sponsor it, but you try to sell these things, and anyone who has the money to pay for it has to go, okay, well, give me the marketing plan, give me the impressions I'll get, give me the eyeballs, and you really have to go like, well, I don't know, or at the low end, when you got like a lesser known broadcaster, and you got like, well, we might get 25 viewers live, but 20 of those actually be in the race listening to it in the background. So we're just not there yet, which is also kind of disappointing, because you look at the deeper pockets and they've got 40,000 viewers, 50,000 viewers. I wonder, actually, I'm looking up what GT Sport got. Give me a second.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the meantime, I'm just scrolling through YouTube at the moment. I've just seen a live stream pop up, and it's the DCS F14 gameplay live stream. The DCS, there's 3.8 thousand people watching that right now. 3.8K watching that live. And on an iRacing World Championship broadcast, 300 is the average from what I've seen. Maybe 500, I'm not sure of the numbers now. But it's not over 1,000.
Were they watching on YouTube?
There's someone this is on YouTube, yeah. This is on YouTube.
And what's it called? DTS?
DCS, the flight sim. I've heard of it a couple of times. It's a really realistic flight sim, but it's got 3.8 thousand people watching it right now. Just some guy flying an F-14 around.
I'm gonna try to bring it up here. Let me see. Yeah, I see. It's really nothing.
Yeah, 3.8k people watching that, and on iRacing you can't even crack 1,000. And I'd say the watching a World Championship Grand Prix Series race is a bit more exciting than that, but I'm obviously biased. Is it? Like, I mean,
Yeah, you
that's
can't even
almost
see
4K
this.
viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
this is
like,
a new
what are they
game, I
watching?
assume, since it says alpha build. Maybe that's why.
I think if I've seen correctly, the F-14 is one of the new planes that go to that game, so it might be just an alpha build of that aircraft. So it could be a reveal for that aircraft. That's why there's 3.8k people. But even then, like,
Yeah,
I
this
don't know
isn't.
how often you see a reveal from iRacing that cracks 4K on YouTube. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean the interest is there. You just got to be on your game. I mean, just look at Jimmer. The viewers, because I
Yep.
race around um and I'm even myself. I'm like, well, this is kind of boring. And then you're like, well, what can I do to spice it up? And so I'm playing some music in the background or something. But you've got to be Jimmer, you got to be Nikki, like a real personality with a webcam and stuff to make it interesting, because the racing itself isn't that interesting. Um, and that's true, because what's not explained by either iRacing or the broadcasters, whoever they are, is like the amount of skill it takes. I mean, for somebody who's been in here for 10 years and there's only a 2,500 road I rating, I'm in awe of the skill that these guys have, the amount of car control they have, the amount of consistency they have, the fact that they can go all the way to track edge and then turn in and hit the apex exactly right. It's not something I can do. And I just think the average everyday viewer kind of loses that, because they just see, computerized cars go around in circles.
Yep. It all comes down to the personalities. There's no emphasis on how much work we put in behind the scenes. There was a couple races this year where we were almost 20 hours of practice for one race. In 2 weeks, you're doing 20 hours. That's 10 hours a week. That's considering I do like 40 to 45 on my full-time job, then come home and I do another 10 hours just on sim race. This year I got $450 of iRacing credits for a full year of that kind of effort. It's like, they don't, like, the money isn't there to like show that we're the best. I don't know if that really makes sense, but typically when you're the best at something or you're up there, the money's good. Anywhere you typically go, I mean, the best players in Call of Duty, the best players in League of Legends, they all, you're talking millions for them. But they also do a YouTube and Twitch on the side, so you get to know their personalities. So when they're up on stage playing at this LAN event, you know who that person is. For us, we just sit behind a computer screen and it's just, oh, here's a name and a number, and that's it. I mean, there's more we can do on our side, granted, but for some of us, like me, my internet speed is awful. It's a miracle I can even play online games. So me live streaming at all is almost out the question. I'm going to try and work on getting a POV camera, or sit it next to my rig and use my phone's 4G to live stream. That's a possibility for me. But I think more has to be done, like the driver profiles. There has to be more emphasis on what kind of level these guys are racing at. What the average person does, and then what your pros are, because there's not really, if you just click on the stream, you don't really know if these are actually the best. There's no way of really telling. So yeah, I mean, there's many things that can be done, many things to be done. It's just whether the parties involved are willing to do it.
Well, it depends on your processor as well, but I will tell you that Restream is cloud-based, and what you can do is you can record it locally, and then you can schedule the upload, and then you can schedule it to go live. So it's pushing live to Twitch and YouTube, but it's pre-recorded, right? So you can do that with Restream. So that might be something. Randy came up with this, way back, almost a year ago at this point. Randy said, heck, it's not our job to make you look good. You've got to look good. Just the fact that you're good at controlling a virtual racing car is not enough. You need to do something else. And one of the counters that I gave to him was like, well, these guys are spending all their time practicing, and if they stream their practice, they may leak their setup, or they may leak their little tips or tricks that they do that nobody else knows about. So they can't do that. And basically, Randy just said, well, Mitchell does it. And I had to say, well, Mitchell doesn't do it all the time. So what do you say about that? Like for a top team, is something like streaming like totally out of the question because you guys are talking in comms about what you're going to do and you don't want to give away your secrets?
Yeah, for us to live stream practice, it would be a waste. But it would be nothing to watch because we'd have to mute what we're saying. We'd have to cover up half the screen to show or to not show what's on the steering wheel. In the F1 car especially, there's so much information on the steering wheel. Like if you're changing ERS maps, your brake bias, if you're changing your regain settings, that all comes up on. So if we're changing something and maybe we found an exploit that changing to this ERS map for this section of the track can gain you 2/10 in the other because you've got more energy. All you need is just Coanda to sit and watch that. And if they know we're streaming, you have Coanda, you could have Burst, you could have Orion, you could have anyone just drop in and watch and be like, oh, so they're doing that. So after you've done all the stuff you need to do to prevent any info from getting out, what you'd eventually have is a big black bar covering half the screen and no game set. You just have the car. That was it. You'd have nothing.
Right.
And who would voluntarily sit down and watch a car or watch half a car go around the track and you can't see the other half because there's a black bar covering up the necessary? That's just not worth.
Right.
And
nobody else does that. I mean, no other motorsport in real life streams their private testing.
Yeah, I mean, no one in their right mind would do it. It's stupid. To broadcast secret stuff. I mean, that's like us broadcasting and live streaming a team. It's no one else. It's no one else's business what goes on in a team meeting. What we discuss privately. It's got no one else. It's not to do with anyone else. Just to boost maybe 20 viewers, 100 viewers, boost a personality. There's other stuff we can do than broadcast live private tests.
Right. I totally agree. But during the season, you almost don't have time to do this other stuff.
No, not when we're working full time. I mean, a lot of times I'll get home from work, have dinner, jump onto practice, and go to bed. That's a weeknight for me. On the weekends, I like to race on the Saturday, chill out Saturday night, maybe go out, have a few drinks with friends, go to a club, stuff like that. And then on a Sunday, the last thing you feel like doing is driving. If you've got 2 weeks between races, your Sunday after the race is typically my day off. So I won't do any driving. I'll just sit and play another game, or I'll sit and watch YouTube or whatever. So I'm not going to live stream iRacing on that day and do fun races because I'm trying to get away from it. I'm trying to have a break. So yeah, I mean, we can live stream our races as well. And we have some plans within Apex to do some stuff about the races next year, maybe like a radio listening, stuff like that. So you guys outside the series just looking in can hear the radio communications that go on. And one thing we've talked about, I don't want to talk about too much because I've obviously said that what we discuss in Apex is private in terms of what we plan on doing going forward. But we think that there has to be more of a story told throughout the year. Race Sport like to big up this kind of cronky Hutu rivalry that didn't really exist. They don't hate each other as far as I'm aware. I mean, maybe they're not each other's biggest fans after Spa this year with what Gregor did. In my opinion, what Gregor did was perfectly fine in my opinion, but I can understand why Cronky would be. There's not really a massive rivalry there, like in the last 2 years, I've had 2 big rivalries with drivers where we hate each other and we keep on crashing, and the shit talk that goes back and forward, pardon my language, the shit talking that goes on back and forward is never told. There's no way for people on the outside to know. And we're not allowed to go on Twitter and knock 7 lumps out each other because iRacing would probably take a pro license.
Right.
It says in the document that you're sending out, you cannot do anything to deface iRacing and all the rest of it. Otherwise, you could be subject to lose your license. So we can't go on there and do that. So it's all in private, and RaceSpot have no idea. Instead, they fabricate this rivalry that doesn't really exist. So there should be more drama. I think that will get people. The personalities would come out because you're learning, who's aggressive and who's not, and who says what in the heat of the moment. Obviously, we'd bleep stuff out if it was post uploaded video. Like, it would be edited. Certain things would be bleeped out. Probably the swear words would be bleeped. If names were mentioned, you bleep that out and stuff like that. But I think things like that need to be done. And there's plans in the pipeline that we want to try and execute that. And I think that would work on our side. But yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's it's a tough situation that we're in. There's, as I said before, there's a lot of things that should and could be done. It just takes everyone to kind of work together and agree on the same thing and chase it.
As somebody who's behind that firewall, do you think it would help to make that part of the subforum private? I mean, public, so people can see. So when there's a flame up in the forums and stuff, people can see that and maybe get some personalities there. Or is like the stuff that's talked about in that subforum too sensitive?
The subforums are pretty dead. There's not really anything gets carried out on there, drama wise. It's more sort of serious discussion. I mean, the Grand Prix Series one is pretty dead. You'll be lucky to see maybe a post a month on there. The GTE one's a bit more active because there's 3 times the amount of people on there. So, and also the GT series is going through some changes. They're going from GT3 to GTE next year. So there's a lot of changes about why is that happening and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm not allowed to say too much because I'm not supposed to say what's in that forum. But yeah, it's nothing sensitive. It's just discussions that are going on about why it's changing and how to improve the series. Just stuff like that. Any kind of flame up typically is either through iRacing PMs or on Facebook Messenger or something like that. That's the only kind of time that that's the only place that flame ups really happen. The driver that I had an issue with this year would like to go into French forums and talk crap about me on there. Ones that I didn't have access to. Then someone who I knew would send me the screenshot. I'd then message the person saying, "What's this about?" and they'd ignore it. So I was getting people talking crap in a different language on a different forum that I can't access. Then when I confront them about it, they run away and don't say anything. That stuff like that, I think, should be shown on the broadcast and should be known about, but it just won't be mentioned because it technically defaces iRacing and detracts from the series, whereas I think it would actually enhance it. Because, I mean, when NASCAR has a big rivalry like Logano and Kenseth and stuff like that, it gets people viewing because you want to see what's this person going to do to the other person? How are they going to race them? All that kind of stuff. It just makes it more interesting to watch and to be a part of.
As a driver, how would you feel about the races being shorter and then doing 2 of them? Would that be feasible?
Not in the current format. No, I don't agree with that. Depends on the car. If it goes to this Formula 3 car, there's also been a lot of talk about Formula Renault 3.5. They'd be shorter races. Maybe you could do 2 races of them, but overall, I'm not really a fan of that. It's not an exhibition series, or it's not. People have also been talking about reverse grids and stuff, and I'm like, this is not an exhibition series. It's not a one-off event or anything like that. It's a championship that's run seriously. It's supposed to somewhat resemble a Grand Prix championship. It's not an F1 copy. It's just a Grand Prix championship. Now you could argue F2 has 2 races. That's a Grand Prix championship, so you could maybe go down that road. But me personally, I prefer a better qualifying format. But the one race in the afternoon is what I personally prefer.
Because it's just one of the natures of road racing. Like once the start happens, and maybe after the first pit stop, your pace has been set. So there's really not much happens unless somebody crashes. You know what I mean? So having 2 races may be able to maintain viewership. That's just an idea. But exactly, what you said. Like if they don't do, if we're an F1 series and they don't do that in F1, then we shouldn't do it. And I agree with you.
Yeah, it all depends on the car choice for next year. If it's a Formula Renault 3.5, sure, put 2 races in. We'll complain about it at the time, but chances are I'll race in it anyway. It's one of those things. I'll complain at the time, but then eventually you'll just man up and get on with it and realize there's more. It could even be more interesting. I might actually enjoy it more. I'm just too afraid of change in that sense. I mean, I've tried to change a lot in this series since I joined it. But I'm afraid of change in that sense of changing race distances and making 2 races and having reverse grids and stuff. I don't really agree with all that kind of stuff. But iRacing run the series, so whatever they do, we've just got to run with it. If not, we'll leave the series and find something else, I guess.
All right, now let me ask you one more question, and then I'll let you go because we're at an hour right now. As somebody who's at the upper tier, you know the differences, and you know where 1/10 is a mile compared to you and your competitor, right? If I take the best Fortnite player in the world and I throw him into a different third-person shooter game, he might be good, but he won't be the best in the world. So, like, how hard is it to switch a car like that? You can talk about the GT3 car too. Like, people have devoted their years to learn the GT3 car up and down so they can win that series, and now it's switched to GTE. Is it just a matter of technical know-how? Once you know how to drive a car, you should be able to drive it without, dedicating your whole life to it. Once you know like where the track limits are and how to apex and all that stuff, is it kind of a natural transition, or is it harder than people think? And more importantly, is it even fair to the drivers to just suddenly switch cars on them?
I think it's usually pretty. Um, it's obviously tough when a car change comes around because it's a lot of hard work. Your pre-season and your winter all kind of change. I mean, for us right now, typically the Pro Series should be taking place right now, and that's not even started yet. So for us right now, we're in kind of a tough spot because we know the car's changing, we just don't know what to, and we don't know when the series is going to start. So I mean, the new car could come out in March build, and then we start 2 weeks later, and that in that sense, it's very difficult. Only having 2 weeks to get used to a car, learn how to drive it, learn its characteristics, and then build the setup on top of it. That is very difficult. But with the GTE guys, I think they'll be fine. The two of them are relatively similar handling. They're probably going to disagree when I say that if any of them are listening, but I don't drive the cars, so I don't know. But they drive relatively similar. They've got doors, they've got a roof, they've got wings, all that kind of stuff. It's not drastically different. It's not as if, they went to the Gen 6 or something. So it's similar in that sense. They've just got to learn up know-how and all that. The best teams will still rise to the top. Coanda, PRT, G2 will be up there. All your usual candidates will still be at the top. It's just, it takes time. Takes a month or two to really properly get in tune with a car. I think you learn it really good after maybe a week or two, but then when you start taking it to other tracks, that's when the hard work really begins to pay off. You put a lot of work on every single track, and then you need to develop the setup for that track, and it's all just time. Everyone's got the skill to get up there. It's just how much time you can dedicate to it. That's really the defining factor for a lot of us at the top. There's some guys who rock up to the World Championship races with 2 hours practice. There's some that rock up with 10, some that rock up with 18. So the guys who practice more will get obviously in tune quicker. So relatively, when a car change like this comes around, it's just time. We just need time to figure out how to drive it, figure out the setups, and then usually race 1 could be a bit kind of all over the place. Race 2 somewhat the same as teams figure out. But come the midpoint in that first year for the car, you'll typically see the same guys at the top that were there on the previous car. It usually kind of transfers.
What about to the guys who like maybe just missed the field? Like they're like, well, I didn't know the F1 car up and down when I'm very fast. Now it's not fair that they qualified in the F1 car, but now we're racing a different car. Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, for this year, we don't know what the Pro Series is going to be like. So, are you talking about like guys who just got into the series in that first year and now they're changing it? Is that what you're?
Yeah, well, just for this year, like somebody finished. What was the cutoff if you finished like 21st?
20th.
Yeah, so
Top
maybe
20 kept the license.
yeah, so maybe somebody finished like 22nd and would be like, well, I'm better than this guy, but he's on a team that knows the tricks. So, and which is fine because we're driving a car that has tricks. But now that we're driving a more spec car, that's not fair, right? That he's locked in and I'm not. What do you? Am I just overthinking it?
Well, you agree to the rules at the start of the year. Top 20 maintain the license, 21st down, get booted out. That's just how it goes. And if the car changes, if you're in that situation where you lose your license and then the car changes, you've got to use that as a clean slate. And in some ways you've got an advantage. If you're fast enough to qualify again, when you get to the World Championship, you've already had 8, maybe 10 races at a really competitive level in the Pro Series to get back into the World Championship. Whereas a lot of the World Championship guys might not race the car at all because they don't want to disclose their pace, or they might do 1 or 2 races here or there, but they're not on a set schedule yet, where these guys could be doing, okay, 2 weeks practice on the new car, getting the, and when they come into the World Championship, they could actually find themselves higher up the championship than if, they just stayed in it. It's sort of tough because it works both ways. That's just part of racing. You're being in a team and being surrounded by people who can test more stuff, find the tricks quicker. That's just part of it. If you lose your license as well, that's part of it. You just got to look at it in the best way possible. You got to believe that you can get back up there. I mean, if you finish 22nd in the World Championship, you're not slow. Maybe you've had a bit of misfortune that year, had a few DNFs, maybe missed a few rounds for work commitments or what. But if you even made it to the World Championship in the first place, you could probably get back in. You just got to practice the right way and execute, and then you just got to look at it as insulate. Everyone's on a level. Go and get it. Try and get yourself on a team.
All right. Well, a lot to chew on there, Kevin. Thanks for being on the show. I will like to give the phone number out. So anyone that likes to respond to what Kevin said, depending on your skill level, if you're a viewer of the World Championship or if you're a driver in it, even if you want to remain anonymous, give me a call. It's 732-965-8773. 732-965-8773. If you want to remain anonymous, that's fine. I won't, play your call on the air or anything like that, so people know your voice, like, that wouldn't exactly work. Like Randy calls in, oh, this is some anonymous caller, but we all know what his voice sounds like. Yeah, that's not going to work. So, or you could just send me a message in the forums, or I'm on Facebook, RutgersKev. Join the show, have some conversation with me. It makes the show much more interesting. Thanks, Kevin, for being on the show. Give me your plugs. Give me everything, your website. Give me everything we should know.
So at the moment, the team don't have a website. It's in development, so I can't give you that at the moment. On Twitter, it's just at Kevin Ellis Jr 98, just my name with a 98 at the end. No underscores or anything like that. On Facebook, just type in Kevin Ellis, should be able to find me enough. All mutual friends of Alex Simpson and Jamie Fluke and all the Apex guys, and you'll see all the iRacing guys on there, so should be easy enough to find me on there. And apart from that, I've not really got anything else. So cheers for having me on, Kevin. It was a good chat, and hope to speak again soon.
All right, thanks, Kevin, and thanks to my other guests that were on for the first part of the show. Check out Kevin when the iRacing World Championship Series starts back up again. Depending on what the announcement is, when we'll find out soon when it will start. Next episode, we'll talk about the new build, what's in the build, and more importantly, what's not in the new build, which is a little disappointing. So that's your little teaser for next episode. But until then,
that's the end of my show. Donk.